He had the drop on Han Solo, and somehow Greedo managed to talk himself right out of that prize. By not shooting first, he earned his place in Star Wars history and as a figure in the original 20 lineup. Hi, I'm Alex. Welcome back to Star Wars Relics. Today we're turning our attention to the galaxy's original Rodian bounty hunter, Greedo. He's one of the most recognizable aliens in the Mos Eisley Cantina, with his green skin, bug-like eyes, and unmistakable voice that help make the cantina scene so memorable. We first spot Greedo sitting at a table when Luke enters the cantina and scans the room. As the bartender singles Luke out, Greedo takes notice. When Obi-Wan is forced to step in to help Luke, Greedo can be seen in the background, watching closely, one eye on Luke, the other presumably on Chewbacca. Patiently, he waits for the group to disperse. The moment Han breaks away, Greedo intercepts him and presses a blaster into his chest. The two slide into a booth where Greedo tries to shake Han down for money, but Han Solo plays it cool, drawing his blaster under the table and firing before Greedo can get a shot off. That's what happened, and that was the end of Greedo. Greedo was not the last Rodian we saw in Star Wars. In Return of the Jedi, a Rodian can be spotted in Jabba's palace, present when R2 and 3PO deliver Luke's holographic message. When Boushh arrives with Chewbacca, and even during Luke's confrontation with the Rancor. Interestingly, this Rodian doesn't appear to have been invited aboard Jabba's sail barge for the trip to the pit of Carkoon. In 1977, George Lucas, in his infinite wisdom, gave us the special editions. In the added scene between Jabba and Han in A New Hope, 3 Rodians can be seen in the background, all dressed just like Greedo. Later, the Return of the Jedi Special Edition reworked the musical number in Jabba's palace, and the Max Rebo Band was joined by a Rodian musician and a Rodian backup singer. The background Rodian in Jabba's palace was eventually given a name and a backstory. Beedo, said to be Greedo's cousin, and even identified as one of the 3 Rodians at the Falcon in Mos Eisley. When Disney took over, that backstory was moved into Legends, and honestly, I'm 100% okay with that. Greedo may be the most famous Rodian we meet in Star Wars, but he's far from the only one. In The Phantom Menace, Rodians appear in the background on Tatooine, and we even meet a young Rodian named Walt, one of Anakin's friends. In Attack of the Clones, they show up in several places, as a hologram during Palpatine's meeting with the Jedi, and even in the background of the Outlander Club and in the Senate. They continue to appear in Revenge of the Sith, again filling out the Senate scenes, and of course, Rodians get even more attention in the Clone Wars animated series, where characters like Senator Anaconda Farr take center stage in several storylines. In more recent live-action projects like The Mandalorian, Rodians continue to appear in the cantinas, marketplaces, and among bounty hunters. And in Star Wars Battlefront for PS4, you can actually play Greedo as himself, as a villain hero. When it comes to Greedo, it all boils down to one of the biggest controversies in all of Star Wars. Who shot first? In the original cut, Han shot first. Later edits tried to soften his image by first having them fire at the same time and then by making Greedo shoot first and miss from point-blank range. But let's be honest, Han shot first, and it's the scenario that makes the most sense. Obi-Wan had just taken out 2 others for pulling a blaster in a bar fight. No controversy there. This was clearly self-defense. If Greedo had focused on getting Han to Jabba instead of trying to blackmail him, he might have stood a chance, but that wasn't his path. Controversy aside, Greedo remains one of the coolest looking aliens in the cantina, instantly recognizable as the galaxy's first Rodian. Greedo made his first appearance on the 20-back card as part of the second wave of Kenner figures. He would later appear on the Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and the Tri-Logo cards. Like several other figures, Greedo appears with the wrong weapon on the Star Wars card backs, an E11 blaster instead of the DL-44. For the Tri-Logo card, he didn't get the traditional 3-logo layout. Instead, he received a different design. I can't quite understand the thinking behind this choice. The image itself remains the same, taken from the iconic moment with his blaster aimed at Han Solo. It's a crying shame that the blaster is blocked by the figure on the card. I would have found a way to keep it fully visible, but The background is an improvement over the original, but at this point, there's too much green for my taste. Personally, I would have chosen a shot showing Greedo pressing the blaster directly into Han's chest. Despite these quibbles, the headshot of Greedo on the card is fantastic. You couldn't ask for a better capture of his face. The head likeness is absolutely spot on and unmistakably Greedo for anyone who's seen Star Wars. Every detail is there, even the subtle ridge above his eyes has been captured. Nothing feels missing, and the proportions are right on the money. The mohawk is a bit simplified, but it's still present and recognizable. If I had to nitpick, it looks like the artist may have used a reference image with strong light reflections on the black eyes, which led them to add what appears to be pupils. I've often read that Greedo's design was lizard-inspired, but when I look at him head-on, I see more of a fish influence than a lizard. Regardless, this is easily one of the strongest head likenesses in the original 20 figures. When it comes to costume accuracy, there really isn't much to speak of. Aside from the overall green color, the sculpt doesn't attempt to capture the texture or detailing of Greedo's on-screen outfit. But if the artist was working from aquatic inspiration, the design choices make a surprising amount of sense, and somehow the whole look comes together. On screen, Greedo wears green pants, a green top, and an orange vest. The figure, however, is presented as a solid green bodysuit with knee-high dark green boots. There is no attempt to replicate the layered costume or the vest, so accuracy is minimal at best. One detail the sculptors absolutely deserve credit for, though, is the hands. The fingers are spot on and instantly recognizable as Greedo's. I have to give Kenner partial credit here. Instead of creating a brand new weapon, they went with recycling one of the blasters already in production, and they chose Han Solo's. Of the options available, it was the clear and logical choice. On screen, Greedo carries a DT-12 heavy blaster pistol, which is actually smaller than Han's DL-44. The figure, however, came packaged with the larger Han-style blaster. Still, I doubt many kids noticed the difference back then. Superb! One of the very best in the original 20, if not the best. This figure also gives us the first lefty, though that's inaccurate since Greedo is clearly right-handed in the movie. That said, the bent elbow pose looks natural and the hand grips the weapon firmly, and he will not drop it. The standing ability of this figure is exceptional. No matter how you pose his arms, he remains upright without wobbling. Interestingly, one foot is noticeably larger than the other, which only helps his balance. Despite the relatively narrow stance, that larger footprint provides impressive stability, allowing him to hold dynamic poses that will bring other figures to their tipping point. Compared to his peers, Greedo is a standout. You may not know this, but my wife and I started Fresh Solutions Therapy as our second career. Trauma touches everyone at some point. Sometimes it's little t trauma, sometimes it's big T trauma. What we do know is that it doesn't go away on its own. If you're carrying something heavy that's affecting your day-to-day life, it's time to reach out for help. At Fresh Solutions Therapy, we have a team ready to help you. Please visit freshsolutionstherapy.ca to book your free 15-minute consultation with one of our trauma therapists. I know they can help you. How can one part be so perfect and everything else so off? The head is unbelievably accurate. The ears, antenna, and snout are all spot on. It's unmistakably Greedo and couldn't be any closer to the on-screen version. Beyond that, the only other detail that hits the mark are the fingers. Accuracy stops there. That said, the outfit, though largely made up, feels appropriate for the figure and somehow works. The arms are a surprising standout, with different bends in each elbow, giving him a variety of expressive poses. He could wave, do a force push, or with both arms raised, look like he was surrendering. In every case, he still looked natural. The narrow stance, overall proportions aren't a problem. The sleek look actually complements the figure. And personally, I never minded the inaccurate blaster. I got Greedo early on, and yes, he was a bad guy in my universe. No matter what, he couldn't shake his Cantina reputation. By the time we moved to Canada, I had two of them, and they were both clearly part of my bad guy aliens crowd. I've always liked this figure. His head was just awesome, and as a kid, I really loved the color green. Greedo remained a bad guy mainstay for my entire Star Wars playtime, and for me, this figure is a true standout. We are fast approaching the end of the original 20, and that means it's time for some lists and countdowns. If there is one you'd like to see, drop your suggestion in the comments or visit the Star Wars Relics Facebook page, where I post the thumbnail for upcoming episodes 24 hours in advance. And since this week is Greedo, I'd love to hear your Greedo stories in the comments. Did you have him as a kid? Who did he square off against in your universe? And did he ever actually win a shootout? Thank you to everyone who has subscribed and taken the time to comment. I really appreciate it. And if you know your Star Wars, you already know who's next. Until then, take care.